Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode with our friend Charting Man Dan. We're going to do a bit of fundamentals and technicals and go through 10 coins that you guys have chosen again. So you want to have a look at Bitcoin first, Dan? I believe we're going to chart against that.
Sure. Yeah, we'll start it off with Bitcoin. There is actually some action going on right now, just in the sense that we're testing key support and breaking a couple support levels. We're testing the low of the dump essentially down at 74.37 here on Coinbase. And if we do break this low, it just means that we are still pulling back on the daily chart, still anticipating a bounce on the 4-hour time frame is coming sooner rather than later, but it tells us that the bears are still keeping control as we have rejected from exponential resistance and we're right back down towards support. So we're definitely starting with a little bit of a bearish note as far as Bitcoin goes, and we'll check in on how each of these individual altcoins stacks up.
Beautiful. So first up, it looks like we've got Binance there. So Binance has been one of the best performing tokens since it listed. It's done over 100x. This one gets you discount on trading fees. They burn tokens every so often. It's just a really good one to hold, and I think we know how profitable Binance is, so it's almost like having a bit of a share in the company, although it's not equity per se.
Yeah, Binance is, I ordered the charts here, strongest to weakest pretty much, and we know the altcoin space has been hurting, so not many are in uptrends, but Binance certainly is at this point. And we just formed another weekly higher low, so we had support at 1404, and we just formed a higher low at 1428, and we're bouncing. So the bulls are trying to confirm the weekly bullish reversal candlestick and resume the longer term uptrend. And we can see here on the daily chart, we've got a nice little higher low and higher high pattern shifting momentum because we were pulling back for a solid month plus there. And that momentum has now shifted back to the bulls, and we'll see how long we can keep these daily higher lows intact.
So next up, we've got EOS, and it's been one of those coins that's going through that transition phase from an ERC20 token to launching their own mainnet, and they have had a few issues. They've got a delegated proof of stake blockchain, which means the community elects the 21 block producers that basically run that blockchain, and they've had a few issues about people hoarding RAM, which is the computational power of the network, I guess. And we're still waiting for them to finalize, I guess, the launch of that blockchain and launch a really good wallet and a few final touches on the blockchain.
So this is another one that still has a longer term uptrend. It's definitely seen more consolidation in the past few months than the bulls would have liked. We had a little lower high and lower low that let us know that that consolidation was going to be a bit prolonged. So we're still looking for that support base. We have to form a higher low compared to 0.0005. A lot of space to do it, but there's just no sign of the shift in momentum just yet. And here's the daily chart, just very clear lower highs the whole way down. And as we know, we have to go from lower highs and lower lows to higher lows and higher highs to shift that trend.
So next up, Ethereum Classic. So it's been 3 years since Ethereum launched, 2 years since they had the hard fork where Ethereum Classic was created, and now we see Coinbase coming out and saying that we're going to list Ethereum Classic. So just be aware that there might be a lot of people that get given their Ethereum Classic that weren't aware they had some on Coinbase at the time. Just like we saw with Bitcoin Cash when people finally get given what they held at that time. So it resulted from that network split when Vitalik and the Ethereum community decided the right thing to do was to roll back a $150 million hack because the technology was so early on. But some people sort of said, look, we don't believe that that's the right thing to do. It's similar to how we've got Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, how there's a small group of people that don't believe it's the right thing to do, and they've decided to take that coin in a different direction.
I certainly hope I wake up one day to a gift of ETC. I might be in the running for that as well. But so here we've got a bit of a choppy action. So we went to a lower low on the weekly, then we broke the lower highs. So breaking the lower highs has us looking for a higher low for the bulls to attempt to change this weekly trend. So the bulls need to hold 0.0018 and change that daily trend to give us that weekly higher low. So at this point, the clear daily resistance is 217. It's definitely a little bit more choppy than the other names that we just looked at. There are a couple weekly supports still left, and as we move on down this line, we're going to see that more and more names are going to have no support nearby. So the bulls do still have that going for them, but they got to change that daily trend back in favor of the bulls.
So next up, we've got Cardano. Now, this is another very interesting one. They're making a two-layer blockchain, another platform-based one. First layer is for that value transfer, so sending tokens and currency. And the second layer is that computational layer for the platform. So that's the layer they haven't quite launched yet. They're going for peer-reviewed code, which should be a lot stronger than some of the buggy blockchains we see, but another exciting one that is sort of promising a lot but hasn't quite launched yet, so keep a close eye on it.
So this is one that is a really nice example of a bear flag on the weekly time frame, and it's comparable to the ETH and LTC bear flags with the US dollar pairings that are currently going on. But it's just a weak bounce on the weekly time frame that led down to a lower low, and we have one support here before the all-time low. So the bulls really want to hold 1666. If that level is lost, again, there's just a bunch of space down here with nothing for the bulls to be looking for. So daily time frame has been dumping. A lot of these names are oversold on the daily. But as we know, these RSI levels can get really extreme dependent on what Bitcoin is doing as well. And the altcoin certainly known for those extreme RSI levels. And right now with this daily RSI down at 27, we can absolutely still go lower. And again, we've seen one green day in the last week and a half, almost 2 weeks. So definitely a bearish market out there. The bears are loving it, and there's no sign of this daily trend changing anytime soon.
Next up, we have FunFair. Now, this is one of my favorite projects, disrupting the online gaming and gambling space. Very experienced team, producing white label solutions. So all the other current sites will be able to use this technology, implement that. So very favorable there. They're building what they call fate channels. So it's almost like their own second layer solution, their own lightning network. So people can go play thousands of games, thousands of clicks, and you're not waiting for those slow blockchain transactions, but it's all happening on their blockchain still, I guess. So one that I believe is going to be a very big performer going forward.
So here's another one that's in a downtrend that's got a lack of support until the all-time low. But the one thing that does stand out to me here is the volume on this weekly time frame, where the bulls set their lower high, they did see some nice increasing bull volume, and then it's decreasing bear volume, very, very low bear volume the last month. It is moving the price, but it's not really showing, an all-out dump. So again, daily time frame have to change that trend. We haven't seen 2 green days in a row in a few weeks, and every single bounce attempt is just continuing to form these lower highs. And as long as these lower highs are this clear on all of these charts, the bears are very comfortable. There's nothing that is forcing any bears to cover, or there's nothing that's really enticing bulls to go long. So until we change these daily trends, it is going to be a pretty steady downtrend.
So next up, we've got Waltonchain, and that's another Chinese-based platform trying to disrupt logistics with small sensors, going for that Internet of Things. They've had some cool little working products they've showed where you'll pick up an item of clothing and it'll tell you all that information about where it's come from, and then it'll tell the store owner what items of clothing are getting picked up, and you can start to pull all sorts of data once you have these little sensors on everything from food to clothing and so on.
So we're heading down pretty brutal the last 3 weeks with the downside accelerating. We've been pulling back for a while now, pretty much since February, but the last 3 weeks it's really accelerated. So we're heading towards a support of 3799, and the bulls really want to hold that level, because if it's lost, there's a lack of support back down towards that all-time low. And this one's getting more beat up. The daily RSI already down at 22, and we are looking at the weekly RSI almost getting oversold as well. So last lower high on the daily was all the way up at 7824. Any oversold bounce that forms a lower high compared to that level will just keep the downtrend intact. And you can see these 12 and 26 period exponential moving averages, which I love on every time frame, but it's been a great guide here on the daily, as they have been resistance at this point for almost 2 months in a row.
So next up, Horizon State, and these coins have been chosen by the community, but this is also my favorite coin, Dan, so full disclosure. This coin is trying to disrupt voting, governance, and decision-making process. Now, they've already got huge trials in Indonesia with millions of people trying to give unbiased information and then run those votes or election processes. I believe they're going to have a trial in the US with the gun vote as well, which would be absolutely huge. So good token mechanics where they give some to charity after each election, and they burn a small amount as well. So yeah, my favorite project.
Cool. Good to know. So on the weekly here, almost looking like an equilibrium setup could be happening, where we have our low down here and then we had a high of a bounce, and now we're pulling back down towards support. But if the bulls can hold that level, we could be forming a tightening range, and that support right now is key, and that's down at 317 right about there. And in terms of resistance, again, still just lower highs on this weekly time frame. And I'm not familiar with this platform for my charting, so bear with me. Got to switch back to the daily chart. We just bounced and we set a top at 435, so we have to break 435. Need a little daily higher low and a break of 435 to start to shift that momentum. So there's more of a little bounce on the daily time frame here than the other names that we've looked at that were pretty much in free fall. So let's see if the bulls can follow through and break that 435 level sometime in the next couple days.
So next up, we've got Nano. So this one's actually been around since 2014, but it used to be called Ray Blocks. They use a DAG, so similar to IOTA. And they've kind of got a block lattice in where every person or every node is their own blockchain. So that enables people to do instant, feeless transactions. And that's kind of its difference. It's a currency, but it has had a few bugs. It's not just... it's not perfect, I guess, Dan. Otherwise, everyone would be using it if it was instant and feeless. But definitely one to keep an eye on that's very promising.
Yeah, this one, Bitcoin's clearly blowing it out of the water. We're at all-time lows, and the weekly RSI is down at 23. The daily RSI at this point has been oversold for about a week or so. A little bit of a volume climax, bullish reversals, spinning top candlestick, almost a doji there, but have to see follow-through from that. So resistance is 2397 for step number one. Then the next lower high is all the way up at 3046. So we know that this altcoin market goes through cycles, and we obviously see things get pretty extreme to the downside, and then there's some solid bounces. So while I personally, my style would not be buying into weakness, I would definitely be starting to watch. I mean, so many of these names are so beat up that there will be some nice little bounces and some changes in the daily trend at some point in the near future, in my opinion.
Definitely. Next up, we've got Nexus. So this one is building a decentralized internet on top of what they're calling a 3D blockchain. So basically, they launch small cube satellites into space, and then they have ground stations as well and mesh networks, and people relay that signal between each other, and we have our own worldwide decentralized internet. And this is founded by Colin Cantrell, who's the son of Jim Cantrell, who founded SpaceX. So they've got space in their blood, I guess you could say, Dan.
Very cool. I'm actually really looking forward to something like this, because the only thing holding me back from traveling around the world and trading is internet connection for live streaming. So looking forward to some universal Wi-Fi. But for here, we've, again, all-time lows. So this is definitely, anybody that's at all-time lows is clearly the weaker of the names. And we're looking down at 1478 as the low, the daily chart. Not doing anything to give the bulls confidence. It's actually another little bear flag here potentially. So this pain is not over for the bulls at this point, and we're going to have to see a break of 1684. That's the last lower high on the daily. So if the bulls want to break that lower high pattern, that's the first hurdle that they're going to have to get over.
Cool. Next up, we've got Electrify.Asia. So this is another exciting program building decentralized energy markets, building on top of Ethereum, but using a Mesa Go as well. So a lot of people aren't aware that they're actually working on that plasma scaling solution, which is basically means you will have your own blockchain on top of the Ethereum blockchain. So if we have a decentralized energy grid, it's going to be obviously thousands of transactions, which we can't do on the Ethereum blockchain. So very interesting stuff, building little Internet of Things sensors and decentralizing energy markets.
So we're here at all-time lows as well. Need to go to the daily chart to find the last resistance level where we topped out. And I'm looking at a couple levels, 269 and 275 is the last resistance level, and then we drop down to a lower low. So the bear is keeping in control as long as these lower lows, or I should say lower highs on the daily, continue to form on every bounce attempt.
Awesome. Well, I'll take you back to chat screen, Dan. And anything, just sort of general advice for people in terms of these charts are looking pretty nasty against Bitcoin, a lot of them, and we've discussed the ETF in general. Do you start to think about risk to reward at this stage in terms of just small moves can give great percentage gains?
Yeah, actually, that's what I was just looking at when I was seeing, even those small little bounces are giving some good reward. So again, personally, I would not be trying to catch the falling knife, but I would be checking in daily and picking, a list of names that I want to check in on every day. And as soon as those trends start to change, whether you want to be higher risk, higher reward and get in on a 4-hour trend change, or if you want to be more patient and wait for a daily trend change, at that point, that's when we have support levels to go off of once we start to see that shift. So as of right now, a lot of these names don't have a clear support to go off of. So it's very hard to gauge your risk to reward when you enter a trade. So keeping an eye on things, waiting for a shift, but also not trying to catch that falling knife because, it could drop another 20% for all we know. And definitely we need to stay protective. And actually right now, Bitcoin's got a nice dump going on. 4-hour RSI down under 24. So might be looking for an oversold bounce here tonight on Bitcoin as we just broke the daily inside bar bearish. Still in consolidation mode, 6th red day in a row. And keeping an eye out for another oversold opportunity. I've been playing a couple bounces the past few days.
Awesome. Well, let's keep an eye on that, Dan. And thanks to the community for voting those coins. This has been a bit fun again. So cheers.
Absolutely. See you next time.
See you guys.